Welcome back to Wook Plus. I am Weekend Wook. Good morning, everybody. Here with Kev, and we got J M Hart from Brokedown Podcast and HFPod, among other numerous projects. How's it going, guys?
All right.
Morning. Welcome. I love that music. It's such a chill way to start.
Fantastic day yesterday.
Oh, what'd you do yesterday?
I watched the Ravens just obliterate the Texans.
I can't believe it's all coming together. It's finally happening for you.
It's our year. I know.
I'm really happy for you.
That's great. I have to go to Baltimore tomorrow, so everybody will be in a good mood, right?
Yep.
No muggings in my future.
Yeah.
It'd be nice.
You're crossing the Beltway, huh?
I'm taking the train.
There
up,
you go. Good answer.
to the office, train out. Yeah, it's not my usual range, but I'll get up there once.
So are you doing Monday Green?
I am not, but not because I'd have to go through Maryland.
I was gonna say that's a good enough reason in and of itself.
No, it's I did a bunch of the Phish Fest 1.0 and then it and whatnot, and I've actually was looking forward to this, and then just kind of not really hitting for me, and so I think I'm going to buy a guitar instead. And probably save money.
I feel like they kind of
about ticket prices. It's just it is what it is.
I don't know. I don't think the prices themselves are terrible, but I think the delivery was kind of botched. I think that the poor communication on all the different ways you can do it and how the cost works out. Everyone I've talked to is confused as all get out, but based on it, and it is pricey, and it's Dover. I'm pretty excited though. I have not hit a ton of Phish festivals in my youth, so I'm kind of using it as an opportunity to to live the the life that I missed out on earlier on. So
I have no doubt that it's going to be awesome, and everybody who goes is going to be glad they did, and many people who don't go are going to be sorry they didn't. I'm not going to be sorry that I didn't go. I long ago gave up regretting missing shows because you just can't see every show. But I'm sure it's going to be great, and you're going to have a killer time.
Yeah,
I'm not as excited as I was when they first announced it, and I mean I'm happy everyone was so into it on Friday, getting all the tickets, and I guess it's some of the Glenn Close sold out and all, but I just was thinking, I look back at my Lemon Wheel ticket, and I bought it on 3 days before the Lemon Wheel. I think I bought it when left Vernon Downs, or on the way to Vernon Downs. We stopped at a mall and bought the tickets for the Lemon Wheel.
Wow, I think I mail ordered that. I don't remember now. I'd have to go.
Yeah, I have a regular Ticketmaster stuff, but that included parking. It included all the fees for $75. You knew what you were getting up front walking into it.
Yeah, but it was
and if you
30 years ago. Of course you're going to get inflation and things are going to change.
But that's a lot of
premiums, because there's a lot of fans like me who don't want to just sleep in what they now call GA camping, which is just here's some dirt.
Right. If you wanted to go in car camp and GA like you did when you were 22, you could probably do it for pretty cheap and pretty easy. The reason it's complicated now is because we're coordinating our Vs and we're figuring out passes and we're doing all this, bougie shit.
Yeah.
What about the Sphere? You have any hype on that? I mean, I'm not going just because of the distance and everything, but it's kind of a sweet getup, I think.
I think it's going to be awesome, but in a completely different way, right? We talked about this on HFPod a little bit on Friday. It wasn't our main topic, but how can you not, right? It was
it sneaks its way into conversation often. I feel like.
I mean, so you look at what they do with New Year's, right? And they do a production and they focus in on that, and they commit hard. There's no way they're not doing that with Sphere. They've got some sort of massive visual production element that is going to be happening. And I have no idea if they're playing to the production, if they're just, it's going to go on while they do what Phish does or what. I mean, I really don't like, we could speculate for hours probably, but
And we have.
I have, right. And I have little doubt though, that it's going to be very cool for people who were there. Very
Yeah.
cool. And I bet it's not going to convey well to those of us suckers sitting at home.
Right. But we'll still webcast it.
I fear that they're going to have to do the former of what you said and play to. We know we have 10 minutes and you're going to do split open and melt here or something.
No way.
I just don't know that they're willing to commit to that kind of thing
No,
for for that kind of
wouldn't.
song. You know, I don't know.
That's
part of why I can't
Kev's hung up on this idea of it having to be like a locked in produced video, but they can live produce graphics, right? It's like you have built it, just like he has built-in programming for the light rig. They're not actually telling where each light goes with that light rig. It's essentially as complicated. So they'll have built-in,
triggers for different things.
Right. They have like, okay, it's a space zoom or like a light speed zoom, or now it's this swirly light screensaver thing. Now we're into the water and they can, manipulate it and change colors, contrast, saturations, and add different videos in and do it live.
I mean,
right.
I've had
or they use AI, which could be really cool, but controversial.
Yeah. I've had video artists, a video artist on Brokedown Pod, and like his whole gig is to improvise along with the music, and he's doing it fairly lo-fi, low tech. The people who work in the Sphere, the people who Phish will work with, will be that, but max tech. They'll have the best stuff, and I'm sure it's, like I said, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
weird,
and they've had a lot of time to prep too.
Yeah. All right, so let's go backwards one more to Mexico, which everyone seems to be forgetting about.
Dates and get it out of the way.
And in a month, it's in a month, and it seems like it's been forgotten about. Do you have your expectations, or if you had any, been lowered for Mexico?
No, I think if Phish is playing really well, like let's strip away all the big show elements, forget Gay Man happened, and yeah, you could complain about a couple of the sets or whatever from the run, but there was also great stuff in that New Year's run. Great stuff last year. Phish is playing really well, and they have a good time in Mexico. They're relaxed. They play, I don't know, like 40 sets over the course of the weekend or some ridiculous thing that none of it counts for stats, of course, right? Are we agreed on that?
Yes,
it's not real.
Agreed.
Wait, what webcast?
No. I mean, if just because you go see Phish in Mexico,
right,
exclusive resort, that doesn't really count for stats.
No, of course not.
Yeah,
that's not.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
I agree with you 100%. Though I think the summer was an upward trajectory the whole time, peaking at MSG, right, and it was one of the better tours. I'm not gonna say the best, but one of the better tours in the last 5-10 years. Not quite 21, but better than 22. Then the fall tour continued and was, I thought, really great. Chicago was awesome, and then New York MSG again for New Year's was a phenomenal. I think they're playing outstanding. I think in the off season, fans get a little, whatever. Like you're old and tired, Kev. Like, it happens. But I think
fans lack object permanence
when the shows are here.
They forget how good Phish is in between Phish tours, unless they're spending all their time diving into Phish. And I don't know who's got time for that, because I got other records to listen to.
Yeah, we've thrown into our schedule every week doing the Wook Club, just picking a random show. And we've been nailing some of the shows we've ended up picking, but it is another thing now.
Luck. It's super random.
I'm gonna have to try to keep up with those. I've seen them after the fact, and that's a fun project, fun activity. We used to do that on one of the Phish message board that I was on for years. We do like a show of the week, and like everybody would, like show club, like your book club, and we'd go and we'd listen to the show, and we'd come back and write extensive posts about the shows, and and just try to figure out who was going to hate it. And it was a lot of fun and very educational.
Yeah, it's cool because
Right.
you end up with shows that otherwise would never go back and revisit, right? Like a
Yeah.
couple of times there's shows that were like 2 shows before a show that I've heard several times, but I would never go back a couple of shows in that tour. So you get really good ones. What's this one?
I think in Oswego they had Sun Seals and Del
Del McCoury
McCoury
Band.
Band.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I would be surprised if they're doing that this year. I don't think they need
Yeah.
to.
Yeah,
I
I
think
was
it would be
waiting for
fun.
the
Either.
full.
But-
I was waiting for the full line artist lineup to drop before I bought tickets, but
Yeah, well, they had to scramble and rebook after Coachella announced exactly the same lineup. So they're gonna.
all they had was Phish left. All right. My theory is they have 5 years left. What do you think about that, Jonathan?
I think that
Leave it
Phish
up.
has no idea how many years left they have, and I think they go as long as Fishman can do it.
Oh, Fishman's the linchpin, huh?
Well,
Absolutely.
physically, it's hard, I think.
Like,
I mean,
I don't-
eventually you lose a step. Although Billy still can fucking smack drums. I mean,
I
he's
don't-
lost a little bit of a step, but he still plays pretty well. So
I don't think anyone in the band is replaceable. Don't get me wrong, but I think that potentially the drummer in a band like Phish is probably. I mean, guy just had neck surgery though, like 2 years ago or whatever, and
Right.
I mean this past year, he's played like a freaking monster. So
you're completely possessed.
plenty
This is
of
one of
time.
the best years he's had, I feel like.
It's a
I mean-
good best in a while. It was really great.
Hey, Kev, I
mean-
want to clarify something, though, just so you don't one day say you're right. You've been saying this 5-year take for like 3 years or 2 years. So it's like you're just going to keep saying, my take is that they got 5 more years left. And it'll be like 2028. And you're like, yeah, they got 5 more years left.
Nailed it.
Right. Until
Oh,
they're gone. And
exactly.
they'd be like, play the clip from 5 years ago when I said they had 5 years left.
you get if you're a drummer though, you got to do like Chris Meyer and get yourself one of them robotic shoulders that he got. He's just been a madman since he's come back for this tour for UM.
There you go. Anything is possible in this modern era. Get some AI drums, and then all he has to do is hit and trigger the pad. It's right next to the pad. He has the drums for Limb by Limb.
Right.
And
That was an excellent mimicry, or what do you want to say? What do you call that? Recreation. That was an excellent recreation of his samples. I don't know. We've had this conversation several times. I don't know why it's like one of these things. Like I don't want to say replaceable things, but I would put it like this. I think outside of Trey, obviously for the writing and stuff, Phish contributes to the sound of Phish more than any other member, more than Mike and Paige, basically. Like his style, and even I could almost argue you couldn't create what Trey creates, but you could replicate some of the things Trey does easier than what you could replicate the way that Phish, drives a jam. I don't know. That's hard to say, but I think those two are what create that sound.
You could hire another guitar player who could play things that Trey has played.
Right.
That-
Replicating, not
that guy
creating it, not the
exists.
imagination, not the composition, but hey,
Right.
study this recording, these songs, learn it, and replicate it.
And maybe you could hire a drummer who could replicate what Fishman has done. Although I think that most drummers would be reluctant to
Step in.
commit that hard to that kind of he's an amazing drummer.
Yeah. I don't know.
I say
Maybe
this
I'm like
as a guitar
partial
player.
because of like the whole drum thing, but when I go and see a really good cover band like Phish tribute, the drummers are phenomenal, right? Like, don't get me wrong, they're all way better than I'll ever be, and they all could be in really successful bands. But you could tell, for me, you could tell the difference between what the tribute drummer is doing versus what Phish does. Easier and more obvious than what the tribute Trey and Trey are doing. Now, granted, we're only talking about replication. We're not talking about original creativity or genius or anything. But I think that's like empirical evidence is like, hey, it's really hard to capture whatever that essence that Phish is throwing in there, that mojo.
Yeah. All right, let me switch gears on you. I
Yo.
see you have a shirt on there from the Jauntee, one of my
Speaking of good
favorites.
drummers,
Colin, a fantastic guitarist. Now, did you have some connection with them and a
Yeah.
recent release?
well, so I've known Scott, the drummer, for a long time. I met him through Phish fan circles during the hiatus, when they were broken up, and I didn't meet him in real life until Hampton, actually, 09. But yeah, he and Caton is the guitar player. They started this group, and they are a terrific group. They're a pretty locked in foursome now. The lineup changes early on happened, as will, but yeah, pretty early on, I was hearing some of their stuff, and I was like, these guys can really play. And I wasn't doing any releasing any of my own songs at the time, and I sent Scott a few songs, and they've got a couple of them, couple songs that I wrote in their rotation, and the first single off their new live compilation, Jaunts
Jaunts of Our Lives, Volume 2.
Volume 2. Yeah, thank you. The first single off that is one that I co-wrote. I just wrote the words, Scott wrote the music. And there's another one that they're doing.
Right now, do you
yeah,
find...
I mean, sorry.
I was going to say, how is that weird to you? Because you're normally singer-songwriter. You've released a few things on your own. Just sending a lyric out, is that, strange to you because you don't know what it's going to be set like, the melody is?
It's been a good experience. And actually, with more so the other song, Fading Time, that I wrote for Scott, he nailed what I had in mind. I sent him a set of lyrics, and he locked in very closely to the vibe that I had in my head. Because I write him, I hear music sort of sometimes. And when it's for me, and then I pick up the guitar and try to figure out what it is and compose while I'm writing. And sometimes I don't. And so in these cases, I just didn't do that stuff, and I just sent him the words. And
You didn't have
it's
a
very
melody in
different,
mind
but
that
it's
you
kind
were
of
writing
cool.
it to?
Sorry?
Did you have a melody in mind that you were writing it to?
Kind of. I had a the lyrics, I hope, and they must have been, because he was able to latch onto something, were suggestive of at least rhythm
Right.
and whatnot, and they have their own cadence, and I think he found them. I think he's a really talented composer and a really great drummer, and I was just like, let me get these guys some lyrics. They've been writing a lot of their own. They write all their own stuff other than covers and a couple of my songs. So they've been writing great stuff on their own. So I haven't been sending stuff, but
they did a really interesting thing over quarantine where I guess they played 8 shows, no repeats, and basically went through their whole catalog there. During quarantine, your musical aspirations took off a little bit. You started putting stuff out on Bandcamp. I think So Below is the latest one from last October. Oh, right. We got a visual.
Oh, it won't focus on it, but there it is. Yeah. So, I was, I've been writing songs since I was in middle school, and recording stuff since the end of high school, and none of it was all that great. It was all I wanted. I mean, I was pleased with it in the moment, but it was all learning. But then I had kids and jobs and commutes and
life.
COVID didn't get rid of the kids, but it sure got rid of the commute. And so I moved in here to work, and then slowly it was started taking over this room. It's put a record player in here. I'll bring the guitars in here. And once the guitars are within arm's reach all day long, you can really get some shit done.
Right.
Yeah, as soon as something hits you, just right there. It's not like you're in the office and you get an idea or something. You're like, shit, I got to remember this and hold on to it for whatever. Yeah, exactly. Just reach and go. That's awesome. You need creative space like that. I really do believe that the space and the environment is a big factor in creativity, as much as whatever's internal in your head. It's your environment, I think, is a big aspect of that.
You've got to have room to play, and sometimes that's literal space, and sometimes it's just time, which of course is the most valuable commodity that we have as humans.
Your time too, where it's not cluttered with other thoughts and shit.
Yeah.
That's because I'm not projecting. I don't know if this is the same for you, but like I could get time where I have a like isolated moment where I don't have other stuff to do, but all the other things that I will have to do are still looming in there. So it's like really hard to clear your head out to be like, all right, I'm at peace and I have an empty playground to play in internally too.
I mean, certainly I have lived under a lot of stress in my life, as many parents and, job having people will. But at the same time, I've also long been really good at just like pretending that's not real, even though it's very real. But like I can sit down and just like a lot of days sit down and just let it go for a little bit. And there are times when that's not real. But yeah, and that helps. But again, being able to just shift gears very quickly in the course of a day, so I can grab like 5 minutes to kind of sketch out what that verse might sound like, and then I can kind of just hammer out some more verses over the course of the day. And
do you record onto your phone? Like if you get an idea, do you have an app on your phone you can just press a button and record a melody real quick or something?
Voice notes is king. Yeah, absolutely. Voice memos, whatever. I don't even know what it's called, but I can tell you what, I put it on the lock screen so I could just get right to it, Yeah. It's great. I love it. But I mean, I sit right here. I have this microphone and this stuff all set up all the time too. And I have voice memos on my computer. So I can just kind of hit it and like record a demo and then go back to doing day job shit and
or doing pod shit, because you're on 2 different pods on top of recording your own stuff, huh?
Yeah, but like Brokedown Pod comes up now and then. That is to say, when I'm ready, I do it. When I have a guest,
when the inspiration strikes.
I know. I mean, I try to get it done maybe once a month, but
yeah,
I am the sole proprietor and mover on that. So if it doesn't happen, then nobody else is mad.
A blessing and a curse.
Yeah,
I ended up having to get co-host mostly just to ensure shit gets done, because if I left it to my own devices, shit would just sit there. Like I don't mind working, but it's just that extra oomph of like, Kev being in there like, hey, we got to get this done. Like, yeah, we do. You're right. Let's get it done. I don't want to disappoint you.
Well, Brokedown Pod is like aggressively non-profit, non-anything. I mean, it's just about talking about music. Sometimes Grateful Dead. Used to be Grateful Dead was the driver, but now it's kind of like we might get into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it's not fun, then I'm not doing it.
Right.
For that
What's
show.
the point of that?
Yeah.
I found that am I lagging or something? I was going to say, I found that with all that jam, it's Amanda who is the catalyst. When I wake up and don't feel like doing something, I'm like, she jumped in this with me, so it's not just me if I don't cut this thing this morning and get it out in the afternoon,
Right. And that's great. You guys are killing that show. That's so good, and such a great like flow of guests. I could not keep up that pace, but I don't have to.
Right.
And I designed my podcast so that I don't have to keep up with nothing. Which is
right. I was sitting around thinking, what's the most difficult thing I can do? And I was like, release stuff every day. That's going to be a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Do you regret that some days? You don't have to answer.
So some days I do, and I think sometime in June we'll hit 500 episodes, and I may scale it back a little bit.
I mean, I've just released episode 126 of Brokedown Pod, and it's been around for 7 years or something. Yeah.
How was yours? Like 9 months?
No, it was
6
it's
weeks.
18 months now. We're about 18 months in.
Yeah, it's insane. Well, we
That's
used to
awesome.
call that Kev's chi. Like he just has this head energy. And I'm glad that he had the other project because we would have like a meeting with Wook Plus and we're like, okay, we have a good show next week. And then Kev's like, has 500 other bits. He's like, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that. I want to interview this. And we're like, none of us were like there with him. Like we
Right.
wanted to do shit, but we're like, come on, man. And so it's like now he has all that extra energy is just fucking hitting it. And you're right, they are doing a great job. I like all these shows. It's really cool. Like I feel like HFPod and Brokedown and all that jam and Wook Plus, like we got so much good content out there, and it's all very unique. Though I love how naturally everything found its own lane, right? And there's not a lot of head to head. Like, I mean, it's all adjacent and comparable, but like it's also very like comfortably in their own lanes in a good way. I think it
like
makes it work well together.
We could exist on the same like TV channel in the 80s and people would be like, oh, these guys are on now. Cool. Oh, cool. These guys are on now too. I like them too. We're all doing like similar audiences, but really like, I like comfortably in our own lane is a really good description. I like it.
Can you explain to Tim and I what exactly this year's thing on HFPod is? Because when you guys rolled it out,
by the way, Kev, you're the one that didn't understand. I mean, we'll let John describe it. Jonathan describe it, but like I understood it just for the record. I don't think it was that complicated.
Okay, so I'm not a sports guy, but apparently in sports, they draft things. Okay, no, I obviously I have a little greater understanding of this than I let on. But so the idea was that we would each pick a year from a separate decade. So we had the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s in which Phish played, the aughts in which Phish played, then the teens, and then this decade, the 20s. And then also as a sixth like bonus category, is that 6 or 5 already? And then would be the aughts, the hiatus years. So you had to pick a hiatus year. So you could only pick one from one category, or rather, you could only pick 1 year from each category. But you did have an option to try a trade. Everybody had one trade. Most people didn't use them. So then we did it in the, like, I guess it's a kind of a normal fashion where like we rolled to see who would go first, literally dice, which I have here somewhere. And then so Brian picked, then Megan picked. I think that's right. Then I picked, then RJ picked, then RJ picked again before it went back to me back. And so forth.
Snake draft.
Snake draft. That's it. Thank you. So we did that. So that should explain everything. Brian picks 95. Good pick. Megan picks 97. Good pick if you like that shit. I would never have picked it. I picked 94 because Brian picked 95, and 94 is awesome. And it's also the year that created all the Phish fans. Right. And then so forth. Like, and then RJ is stuck in his favorite 90s years. What's that?
I don't want to derail the conversation about the draft, but I'm shocked you're not a fan of 97.
I mean, 97's fine. It's probably like my 4th favorite year, 5th favorite year of the decade. It's just not my thing.
It's like it's my favorite year by like a long shot. Like it's actually like if I were to like draw it graphically, I'd have 97, and then there would be a little bit of a gap, and then the rest of the years would start to.
You and Megan can hang out on that. I listen to 95, where shit is actually demented and really triggers my brain in exciting ways. Where 97, a lot of those groove funk jams, and admittedly, there's other things in 97, and I actually quite like the summer. A lot of those like fall 97 groove funk Phish jams, they put me to sleep.
Hey man, to each their own. I love that. I love how there's so many different takes and they're again adjacent but like comfortable in their
why does 93 not get the love that 94 does? And I just feel like 93 was a more transformative year for the band.
I mean, I think they were all 92, 93, 94, and 95 are all very transformative. 93 is an awesome year. And you notice how I put 97 kind of like way down numerically? 93 comes above that for me, for sure. 95, 94, those are my top 2. 93, 99 are actually like right there for me. Both very different, but both very important and big years. And then probably 97 or 98 after that. But there were only 4 of us, so we only had to only 4 years got picked. RJ went 99, not a bad pick. I mean, I know you prefer 93. I heard you talk about it on this show. That's fine. And then so then I had to pick an 80s show. I picked 80 year. I picked 89 because I like things like the Ian's Farm 5/28/89. I like that they started bringing the horns in, split up into melt debuts. I can make a case for a number of years. I picked that one, and so forth. And then Brian made a boneheaded trade. There was only 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023 available in the 20s. So somebody got stuck with 2020. That was me, because I didn't prioritize the decade to get my one pick.
Because you could do it out of order, right? You're doing a snake, but you could jump from like the 90s to the 20s and then to the aughts. Like it didn't matter which.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
After the 90s, I would have gone straight for like 21. Because
21
there
or
was only
17
4.
probably.
Yeah, see, I didn't want to get stuck with like 1986, so I went for 1989. Like that was my second pick. I don't really remember after that. It honestly, somebody picked 2000, so I didn't get it. So I don't know what I picked. I don't, and then it all falls apart in my memory. But people should go listen to the episode. It makes sense if you listen to it. Like they put out these like polls, who won the draft or whatever, and people are voting and they have no idea what they're voting on. Because yes, Megan had 1997. You love 97. You might pick that, but I don't think that anybody won. Nobody got everything they wanted.
Right. Well, the whole point is to talk about different years of Phish and the context and the discourse, which you guys do, remarkably well. The 40/40 project. I mean, it's if anyone was set up well to do that kind of draft, it's you guys, because like we kind of started doing it with like the book club, but you like really are into it, like all of these years and the growth and development and seeing the patterns, and it makes for a really interesting. I agree, really interesting episode. Everybody,
somebody had to pick 2004, right? Because there were only 4 of you, and there were only 4 Phish years in the 2000s.
Yeah, 2009. Is in the odds too.
So you had 2000, 3,
I
4.
That one, I think.
Okay,
good.
And then you had 3, 4, and 9, right?
I think RJ got 9. There were some discrepancies, right? So like I asserted that if 2020 was in the 20s because they played just Mexico, which as we know doesn't count. 2000
like 90 would be in the 90s.
Right. Well, 2002 should count in the aughts because they played New Year's.
Right.
2002, when they came back, was in 2002, not 2003.
Yeah, but the stats go to the start of this show.
Yeah, so. Right. No, they came back for that night. So it was not that.
Oh, right. The day after. They did the first.
They played 2002, 12/31, 2002, 7 Below, the whole thing. And then they went to Hampton, which was great.
I would like to see that, and I don't want to we don't want to steal your idea, but I would like to see it with the snake doing a draft without the decade constraints, because I think the intricacies of like how the 90s within themselves lay out, and then when do you start getting like 3.0 shows? Because like Kevin and I were talking about that on one of the shows recently. Like I think like you could argue 17 and 21 would probably sneak in sooner than you would expect. I mean, maybe not like in the top 5, but I think those 2 years have potential to jump in there a lot. I don't think it would be all 90s before you got to the later shows, is my point.
Well, if I may, I think also a larger group would have made it more challenging, interesting.
Maybe we should do a collaboration with HFPod and Wook Plus and do it without the decade constraints.
Exactly. That
I love
will be bloody. I can't wait.
I love a good collab.
Fire up the emails.
What was your non-Phish playing year? I would have gone with 2001 because I love 2001 Trey Band.
Brian loves 2001 Trey Band, and so I picked 2001 because I saw a lot of excellent Kimmock shows that year, and I knew it would piss him off.
That's awesome.
There you go. The grab year too, when they went out with Russo and Ben.
And Megan picked that one when they did the grab, because we we covered that on the 40 by 40. We did a grab show from that tour that was surprisingly. I mean, it's not surprising. I remember that stuff was good at the time, but it'd been a while since I went to listen to it, and my memory is pretty heavily colored by other events of that year. And so I was surprised at how good some of it was when, like in 2004. Trey Anastasio was not a great listener some of the time. Even when he was putting good, cool noises out of his guitar.
Better
I
player
like
than
that.
a jammer. I feel like the drugs and the things in my opinion, impacted the jamming more than the playing. Because, like, you listen, his fingers were still there largely. Like, he was still able to do a lot of the intricate stuff. He just lost the communal improv jam side of. I mean, that
Yeah.
in my opinion, right? Like, that's such a subjective, thing to track. But like, it lost that's where it impacted it the most. I felt.
I would be surprised if he listened back to that stuff and didn't agree. I did an episode of Attendance Bias podcast, and
Yeah, we love
Brian,
that.
and that show's a great show. And I actually brought a show I didn't like
That's funny.
to attend it. I did brought the Hampton 04 to that show, and we got into it, and it was because there are jams in that show that people are like, yes, but this, and I'm like, yes, but Trey is going off, but he's literally going off in a different
Right.
direction than the rest of the band.
Right.
And yeah, it's tough.
Hey, Megan.
Tough to hear.
Now,
Megan.
what did you often forgotten? But one of my favorite non-Phish projects was the Rhythm Devils when Mike got to go out with Bill and Mickey and Jen Durkin singing. That was fantastic stuff.
Yeah, that's cool stuff. Can't get to them all. I pushed really hard and got us to talk about Jazz Mandolin Project
Perfect
on the show. So yeah, but
what's your
I saw
favorite?
that they
Mine's
used to
probably
be
Vita Blue out of all this side band, like the main side bands. It's hard because like Tab is amazing. I like classic Tab more than like full Tab, but I think that's amazing. But that's like an easy answer. But I think if I had to pick like one, it would be Vita.
But so
Vita
do you
Blue's
want
real
Vita
good.
Blue trio, Vita Blue with the guitar, or Vita Blue with the Spam All Stars and all the horns?
So I think when I said it, I was thinking trio, but I don't think it's wholly different with the guitar because the guitar voicing didn't come in and like all of a sudden you had a Trey. It added texture and tone and so I just think of that as an emphasized trio. But yeah, I was thinking classic trio when I said it.
Which we'll never have again.
I'm Jazz Mandolin Project or the original Trey Trio in '99.
Oh yeah, 99.
Because that shit was sick.
That was that 9:30 show. I talked to Ross Lawton, and when I mentioned that, he was like, "That was a good one."
That was a good one.
Damn, you remember that?
Hey, I was there. They played Road Jimmy.
Yep, they did play Road Jimmy.
How can you go wrong?
It was fantastic. Fantastic.
That was one of the
Kevin,
best shows I've seen in my life.
Did you answer? I don't want you to get off without committing and answering.
What's my favorite non-project?
Yeah, the side projects.
Oh man. I mean, I guess for me at this point, I mean, I could go back and pick one that was, like Jazz Mandolin that's encapsulated, but I feel like Mike Gordon has been so consistent with his solo band. And even with the turnover of people, I feel like he always holds it together. And I feel like we've talked about it. That's his place to shine. And I really dig that.
Of the various side projects, his is the one that I've seen the most like growth and upward trajectory. You know what I mean? Like he's worked at it. I mean, I guess Tab, obviously. That's weird. It's hard to like Tab's kind of like its own. But like, Vita's kind of like stopped at doing everything. Everything else was and like Mike's just like hitting it and consistent with it. And that last album he released was the best album they've done and some of the best music I've, out of any of the side projects. I really liked what they did in that one.
So why doesn't something like the Bubble song translate to Phish? Has always been my question.
It's too
I have an idea, but I want Jonathan to answer first.
It's too Mike. Like when Mike we talk about this a little, and I think we may go a little hard on Mike on the HFPod sometimes and his
We do too.
songs.
Well, I do.
But like the guy he's an odd duck, and as it translates to his compositions and his writing, and I think that like some of his stuff is just not. I think he just must have a hard time sticking. That was the whole thing in like the Dead, when they were talking about like Vince or anybody trying to bring a song to the Dead. It's like, if you can make it stick, we'll play it. And I don't think that Mike's really, I think he has a hard time bringing stuff that will stick. Like, look what happened with Sugar Shack, right? He brings this song that Trey's not up to spending the time on for a long time.
Doesn't want to put the time in to learn it and to lock it in. That's a big problem. Is like Trey and Phish, it doesn't sound rehearsed when they're jamming it. It sounds like it's the first time they played it in a long time, and it doesn't lock in the groove. Mike Gordon Band, they are built
Scott
on
Morosky
groove.
can play that stuff because he wrote it.
Right, and they need the groove to build the song. The groove doesn't lock in with Phish and Trey because they don't take the time to put into it.
But Small sometimes has been almost there. Mull has been almost there, and I feel like every
Mull's
time Trey pulls it, he pulls the ripcord.
555 is close.
It's so it's frustrating because it gets close.
That work.
It gets close so many times and doesn't go there, right? I want Mull and 555 to hit soon. They both have so much potential. I think the other thought too I had, Kev, was the album worked for me better than the live because of how produced it was. And normally I don't like overproduced recordings and LPs. The latest Mike album was an example, a rare example, in my opinion, where the overproduction really worked on it. You could tell that they hyper-analyzed every single note and like really beat the shit out of it. And normally I hate that. Like when I hear artists do that, I'm like, oh, you should have stopped like 20 hours ago. But I liked this version of it. It worked for his kind of weird music.
I'd love to see the Pro Tools project for that.
Could you imagine how many lines there are?
Like how small are the edits and that's super hyper nerdy recording stuff but let me tell you, it's a fascinating idea to me.
He did an interview when it released, Mike Gordon did, and they were talking about isolating individual drum hits and individual notes and like replicating them and building patterns in Pro Tools and then layering them on and not just like phrases, like individual notes and manipulating the sound of notes and inserting them through it. And it must have just been an insane file to look at, like the lines and how stacked it was.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, we got to call somebody, reach out to him, but don't tell them not to watch the episodes first because we're like, oh, Mike Gordon's songs are all fucked up. But hey, send us your.
Mike, I'm willing to come up to you and hang out, and we can do it. We can do it. I would like to see that.
You could slightly blur it too. Like I don't need the specifics. I just want to see the colors of it stacked up.
Whole
screenshots.
Zoom in, zoom out. Like I want
to be able to play with it.
Come on.
Yeah, you could lose hours and hours and hours to that kind of thing.
I also want to know what kind of subs he has in his studio, but.
Yeah, I think he's the nerdiest when it comes to like enjoying that kind of stuff. The most relatable to that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously like Trey does it, but he's doing it from like a very, in my mind, like a lofty professional, like Broadway Manhattan way. Like I just picture Mike in like his man cave, just like, hammering out files and doing nerdy shit like the rest of us.
Yeah, Mike's in the lab coat. Trey is standing behind the guy at the board going, oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. Hyped out of his mind.
So are we going to see Gamehenge on Broadway?
No.
You're with Tim on this. Tim hates this question, and I really believe it's going to show up.
I hate how earnest you are about this question.
Right. If you were just trolling us, it'd be one thing.
Have you just been introduced to Phish and Broadway and general economics? Are you new at this?
Yeah, I think you guys talked about this last Sunday, didn't you? Because I feel like I listened to that.
A lot, yeah.
And the Sunday before with Jen, but Jen Bernstein wanted to write a part for Tila. She was like, we should write a new part for Tila for the Broadway musical.
Look, I mean, I will say we touched on this when we were, warming up. I will say that it's a shame the Punch You in the Eye battle dance thing got cut. Trey posted the rehearsal of that. I guess it didn't work on the stage. Like once they were in MSG and had their stuff, it was just
Yeah,
not
the
like
props were small
The
and
French
hard to
joke was
see.
lost without it, though, and you could tell they were laughing because it was supposed to be there when they went
Yeah.
through that part of the script.
these things happen, and that. Look, I mean, this is not a Broadway show. This is a Phish show. Like, I think I said this on Friday with HFPod. It's like the reason that it worked is because we're already maybe 98% of the people in the room at MSG were already in on the joke. We already
Right.
knew it. Like, this doesn't work for like people off the street.
No.
This is an inside joke with props, and it was great.
30,
This
40
is
years in the
one-shot.
making.
I love the stories of the people whose it was their first show. They went with their boyfriend or girlfriend or something, and they were like, "What the hell?"
Oh, it's like this every night. Did you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's totally normal.
This is what we do. Yeah,
Yes.
I don't know, man. I think that trying to pull it out of that setting would just not work, like, at all.
Oh yeah.
I think it would be a terrible, terrible decision. I'm glad. You know what it is? It was fan service to a very specific fan base in the best kind of way. Like, I think people use fan service as like a negative term sometimes with like pop culture and stuff, but like this was the band knew exactly what we all wanted. And instead of trying to subvert it or play games with it, they finally were just like, we are just going to give you 100% exactly what you wanted for it. And it felt really good because as much as I love not knowing what they're going to do, year after year after year, it was always like, oh, I really hope there's like this. And then it's completely different. And right, that's awesome. But eventually, like, you just want the thing that everybody in the room wants. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm glad that for one time, now that they've done that, though, I think they should go back to full subversion. Like I have no idea what they're going to do.
So I have one. I 100% support everything you just said. I have one kind of exception that also goes a little bit to what Kevin is dreaming of with the Broadway. No Broadway, by the way, Kevin.
No Broadway.
Just it's like, let me shoot that down clearly right here. But when Jimmy's mom is out there, or grandmom is out there, she is reading her script from a gatefold LP with a rhombus on it, and I want that record. I want it to have Gamehenge on it. And like, if there's not enough material, put that split up and a melt on the D side. But like, I want that.
It's a 3 LP set, definitely. ACDC bags, one whole side.
There you go. You're right.
Which would be amazing.
Bring it.
That would be enough to get me into collecting vinyls, I think.
I mean, they'll put it on CD for you digital, like, only people. And I have CDs, but I also have records, and I make records, and I'm a big fan of records. So I will buy the record. You can just listen to it on Live Phish or whatever you people do. And
whatever you non-vinyl folk do.
But I saw her with that on the stage, and of course they simulated putting on a record, like, to tell the story, just like so many harpuas have had Jimmy listen to a record, and I get that joke, but I saw that thing open up, and I was like, I need that. I'm texting my friends. Megan's in the chat somewhere. Maybe she'll remember. I was like, give me that record.
That's exactly the moment, by the way, that my eyes started to leak for some reason. I had no idea what was going on, but when it was the needle drop, it was you put the record down and you hear those notes, and I was just like, oh, what's happening to me? This is crazy.
Do we get to see?
You know, it's so powerful.
Do we see more of the Gamehenge songs over Mexico Sphere Summer now that they've rehearsed them and learned them? Or are they gonna get back to once a year for some of them, or not at all?
Yes.
I think it's
I would love to hear a Mockingbird.
Typical Phish,
I would love to hear a Mockingbird without a Forbin, because they owe me a Mockingbird from Darien in '97.
I mean, I think they took good care of you at Darien in '97. Complainer.
Yeah. God. I don't think they're gonna hold off and be like, we're not playing these. These are off limits now. But I don't think they're gonna go into a heavy rotation. I think they'll all kind of maintain, and they're not even a single rotation, right? Like Lizards is in like a medium low, Mockingbird's in like a really slow, bag, and Melt are in very much higher rotations. I think they'll all go back to their normal. I do think Aniculus, because like it was very obvious that they were making it a PG-13 show, and also like they're reading you the book, so they don't need the songs that the entire premise is to read the book. Because so like that whole like controversy I don't buy, but I feel like that is primed to show up sooner than later. But yeah, I don't think there's any like hard fast rule coming out of this. You may catch it.
I just hope that like McGrupp gets 2 or 3 plays this year. Now that they've learned it,
I think McGrupp's been in decent rotation though, hasn't it?
I mean, it's not like it's 1989 or whatever. But
no, but
like
I mean,
but it's been around.
I mean, McGrupp's a once a year thing, though. I mean, the last one I remember was before that was Dick's 2 years ago.
I think that Iculus, though, is primed. I think that anybody who's complaining they didn't play Iculus is like not looking at what they actually have. Like, come on. But yeah, I could, I feel like we talked about the first Game Henge on Friday on HFPod, and you could hear Trey, like even then they like to tease out the Iculus thing, and it's I feel like that was kind of intimated, and certainly everybody expected, or not everybody, but many people expected it, and it will come.
Yeah,
I think that will come in this year at some point.
Yeah, I would say either Mexico or Sphere.
Open Mexico with it. It's like a throwback.
Right,
read the
book,
book,
and then you're done.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, that would be.
They never mentioned Game Henge again. No more songs after Iculus first night in Mexico.
That would get everybody so hyped, and because there is that. I mean, not in reality. Like my personal opinions, everything's gonna be great, and like we're gonna just continue to like have phenomenal playing and stuff. But there is that like natural not letdown. You know what I mean? Like the coming down from such a peak. Like it was similar, like after like Big Cypress, where it's kind of like playing, and you're like, where are we going? What are we doing? I don't think it's quite to that level, and obviously lessons learned, and they've had this path laid before them before, so they're much wiser. But I think there is a little uncertainty at this point in January, like directly after that New Year's, where they're like, what is the next gags and the next things, and like, is it just I feel like there's a little unsettledness in the fan base right now. Maybe not in the band. Maybe it's just projecting it.
Like, was anybody like walking around going, they'll never top Petrichor? Like, Phish has peaked, and yes, this was Game Henge, but it was just a gag. Like, Phish has been putting out solid sets of jams and music, both elsewhere in that run, and of course, all last year, and the years 21 and some of 22, and like, Phish is actually on a pretty gradual rising path now. That anybody who thinks that is like a peak, it may be a peak for gags.
Well,
but Sphere is coming.
See, I'm going to respectfully disagree, Jonathan.
Go ahead.
I don't think it has anything to do with the gag, and honestly, I don't even think it has anything to do with how well they played. I think it has to do with the universal 100% bliss and explosion of emotion in that room. And I'm not gonna go like statting, like, oh, flexing. I've been to a ton of shows, but like I've been to a number of shows, and I've been to a number of great shows that have come close. I've never even come close to seeing 100% every single body in a room losing their mind the way they did on that night. Right. Like it was, and it's, I would even argue that's the difference with Big Cypress. Not saying it's better than Big Cypress, but like Big Cypress was a very drawn out experience, right? Like an overnight, and it was like, hey, we're surviving it together and doing it. This was a very, the Oompapas, and then the first notes of The Man Who Stepped on the Yesterday with the rhombus was it was a singularity. It was a moment in Phish history where everyone in that room just exploded with a joy that you hadn't seen. Like, I didn't, you know what I mean? So like, I agree. Like, they'll keep going. They'll still be playing incredible. And like, we're all drank the Kool-Aid, but I don't know if I will ever feel that feeling again.
What you're telling me is that Phish fandom peaked.
Yeah.
Not
no, yeah,
Phish.
100%. Yeah.
And that's on you, man. Like, you got to be open. You just got to remain open.
20,000 other people, though. Like, right?
Yeah, well, they got to remain open too. But I'm talking to you, man.
We should treat every show like we treated that show. We're all in it together, and we like to peak with Phish.
Every show is a gift. These
Yeah.
guys are
that's
all
right.
going to be. Somebody said in the chat, and they're 100% correct. These guys this year are all going to be 60 or older. Paige, this year, and every Phish show that we get at this point is a gift. Now, add to the fact that when Phish plays these shows, they are really putting out and really trying, even if they don't always hit it, because you don't, sometimes you fall into the net. But they're trying. So, like, may not be the best show that you see second night of Mexico, but it could be the next night. It could be any given night, because
the
still
new
playing.
songs too. The new batch of songs I really like because they take the darker turn.
Yeah.
And so, should we talk about new album while we're
Yeah.
while we're
Yeah.
there's an album coming.
I know. I'm
this
really
year,
excited
right?
about it. What do you think's gonna be the title track or the big one, the highlight of it?
It's The Well, right?
I was going elsewhere, but
I figure they got to call it Oblivion because that is a great album title. I mean,
it is a good album title and a solid song, which I'm pretty sure is about fracking. Because that's through the shale. But it's I don't know. I'm really hoping for Epitaph finally.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that there are
long.
songs we don't know also, in addition to some of the good songs that they've been playing.
Yeah.
Now they recorded Epitaph for the last album.
Didn't
right,
make it.
Tim?
So let's do it again, guys. Let's put it out.
Or use the old track. Would you use the old track?
No, I recorded it again.
No, you do it again.
Yeah.
It wouldn't sound right because they're different people now.
Right.
Oh, and like the room and everything. I like cohesiveness in the album, in an album.
Probably the same room, but
I wonder if we get the reformulated Forward People, whatever Trey called that, on the album.
Maybe. I would be surprised if we get any of the Trey's solo songs and those things. None of that stuff's going to be on there. So,
what about Life Saving Gun with the full band as opposed to just Page
so
and Trey?
hard at MSG?
I'm gonna say no. My bet is no, but I could be wrong, and I would be happy to be wrong if it rips like it did at MSG.
That's a song I don't care if it makes studio, but I hope gets heavy rotation because it rips really hard live. The opposite, well, maybe not the opposite because I like it live, but I really want to hear Oblivion's studio because I think the writing of it and the composition is just so. It's one of my favorite songs. I think it lends itself well to an album version, like a studio version, and I think that's the one I'm most excited to hear.
Yeah, I'm most excited to hear like entirely like new in the studio kind of shit, actually, because that like Oblivion I'm really excited to hear that too. But like, yeah, I like new Phish. I also like what new Phish songs do to Phish.
Yeah. Well, they get in heavy rotation for the subsequent tour. I got Numberlined in 2009, so I've mixed feelings about that. Where it's like every show you're like happy, like God damn it, Trey, not again.
You know what? I think they only played one Merriweather show in 2009, and I went to it, but they didn't play a Numberline that night.
Yeah, so we got Time Turns Elastic instead.
Right. Or like Petrichord in 2016. It was just like every show. Yeah, no, Jonathan, I agree with you. You know what changed it for me a little bit? It was Sigma Oasis and what they did to like Thread and Sigma Oasis and some of these songs that we had heard, but they were completely new versions and jams, and it changed the songs forever. And everything's right. Like they really enhanced the songs. I want that treatment on Oblivion. Like I want Oblivion to get the Thread treatment. 100%. But then also at the same time, because I'm greedy, I also want the new Phish too. I want it all.
I want the album to be a new version of Steam, Thread, and Epitaph. That's all I want, actually. Just that's the real
one side. Its own concept LP.
It's too long for one side. Tom tells me it's too long to do it like a 12-inch single too. So this one song we've not heard has been teased so much.
Years ago, Tom came on the lot, and played part of Epitaph from his phone. He's like, I'm going to get in trouble for this. So there's an actual recording out there somewhere, like a minute of him playing it off of his phone.
You know what's awesome about that? It's because we was so like buried in the middle of an episode with like 20 with a lot of guests and shit, and it was so early on that only has like a couple hundred people that saw that. We have like shows where we're literally just bullshitting and like have nothing, and it's like it does so much better. But then you have Tom playing Epitaph, and it's like somebody
needs to cut that clip.
Yeah,
if
Make
only
a little
if only we
short
knew
of it.
somebody who would work in video. Or
if only we had somebody.
All right, well, listen, I don't
Send
want
it
to
over.
cut this off because it's such a fun conversation, but we are up on the hour, and I have some family
Jonathan,
things
you have
to
to
get
come
to.
bahave sometime.
I'd be happy to. Can I tell everybody to look
Yes,
for me
please.
at jmhart.bandcamp.com. I have music and songs, and
we're gonna put that in the description. It's not there right now, so if you're watching live, it's not. But if you're watching this on the re-record, it'll be in the description.
link.
Nice. Thank you guys so much. This has been fun.
And we're gonna do that collab with HFPod and the draft. I love that idea. It will be blood. Thanks, John. All right, we'll see you guys next time.